Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. This is Ben Kinney, joined with Bob, Stewart, and Chad Hyams. You guys notice how I always try to mix up who I introduce first?
Yes, actually.
I feel like I'm on a little. Did I get two in a row? Or
Maybe. I don't remember all the time, but I want you guys all to know that Bob and Chad are equally as bad in my mind. We've gone through a bunch of tactics that were outlined
in the
mentioned
Yes.
in Robert Cialdini's book Influence. This is a book that Charlie Munger, kind of the Tom and Jerry to Warren Buffett,
Yes.
his partner in crime, said was one of the greatest business books that he's ever read.
It's been
apparently.
a fantastic read going through this.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
Anyway, the last topic today is social proof. Social proof is when individuals look to the actions of others to determine their own action. Let me repeat that.
Yep.
It's when individuals, people, us, we look to see what everybody else is doing before we make the decision to do something.
Would you say that's similar to peer pressure?
A little bit. Here'd be an example. You're walking through somewhere and everybody starts running the other direction. Like, what do? You're like, do you pause or do you grab your crap and start running? Like, I don't know where I'm going, why I'm going, but I'm freaking going. I don't know if it's a tornado, a hurricane, an earthquake,
Or a sail.
an active shooter. Like, you don't know what's going on, but you're freaking running,
Yes.
right?
yeah,
Yeah. We've seen, like, people are all, you ever walk by somebody like a tourist town and there's a big crowd of people around somebody, you're like, I don't even know what they're watching, but I want to watch them. I'm like on my tippy toes, like trying to see everybody's shoulders.
Was that the guy spray painting things?
I was telling Chad. I don't know how many people of our listeners have been to Yellowstone, but when you go to Yellowstone National Park, all of the attractions are really far apart. You like get in your car and drive 30 minutes or an hour to that next attraction, and when you do that on the road between attractions, there will all of a sudden be 8 cars pull over to the side of the street. And then in no time, there'll be 20 cars pull over to the side of the street and people will get out. They don't even know why they're stopped. They'll just get out. Everybody else is stopped. So there must be an animal of some sort. And so I was telling Chad, the first time this ever, as we were driving, I was in Yellowstone, I'm in college. We get out and there is a bunch of people and they're all at the rail on the side of this bank. So we go over there, what's going on? And you can see it couldn't have been 10 or 15 yards kind of down this hill. There's a baby black bear down there. And there are probably 10 people who have gone over the rail, right? And so as we're standing there, I'm like, yeah, Tyson Lance, my friends are about to go over. I'm like, that's a horrible idea. There's a baby black bear with no mama around, but she's around somewhere. If she comes out, like somebody's dead. So I basically just we did end up going over, but I made sure there was a couple people between me and the baby, right?
Like somebody slower.
Yeah, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the slowest person.
Yeah, so I mean,
there,
it was
Bob.
literally people based on social proof and the consensus of like, oh, this is okay. We're putting their life in danger, right? I mean, a mama black bear come out after a little baby, like, and see a bunch of humans standing 15 feet up the hill, like she's coming after them.
Ben, there's a huge, huge example. Talk about this one. You stay in lots of hotels. And it's a great example of this social proof. You've seen the card in the room. Talk about this for a moment.
You know, this is actually not our story. This is from the book,
Yep.
right? But Robert used the analogy of how the power of social proof is used to get us to change our behavior. One example that he gave was, have you guys ever seen those little cards in the hotel bathrooms that says, hey, please hang your towel up if you would like to keep it, reuse it, that sort of thing?
Yep.
When they did the research, they said when they put that little card up that simply said, here are the benefits to the environment or the world or whatever for reusing your towel, 35% of the, what do you call them, people
Hotel guests?
hotel guests that stayed actually reused their towel for an additional day.
All right, so 1 out of every 3.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
Right? However, when they did a little bit more research, they found that if people stayed 4 days, 75% of those people would reuse a towel at least once.
Okay.
right? Maybe you take a shower in the morning, and then you go out for the day, and then you come back and you're like, I need another shower, and it's the only one hanging up, so you reuse it. That was the stats that they figured out. When they changed the message on the little placard that said 75% of people reuse their towel, they created social proof. It had an increase of 26% of the hotel guests now reuse their towel.
So on top of that 35, now it's another 26% of the guests.
Now, when they made one other small tweak, really minute, and I found this really interesting in the study, they said when they changed the message to say 75% of the people who stayed in this room, 404, reused the towel, it had an increase of 33%. It had the most impact because people said other people are doing it and people that stayed in this room are doing it. Well, in the book, he made two comments. One, it's really fascinating that would modify people's behavior. And two, I hope it's not the same towel that I was using.
Well, one of the things that study kind of shows, and this area of the book explores, there's something interesting you said, Ben, around that idea of like, I'm walking up and there's 100 people running the other direction. You said you're unsure what they're running from. And so social proof is one of the most impactful when people are uncertain or unsure. Okay, our brain has a preference for shortcuts, and we just want to get to certainty, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing that's interesting out of that, Ben, is social proof is more apt to work if the people that we're looking at doing that thing that we want to do are like us. And so when they made it, it was everybody in the hotel, it got a certain increase, but when they were like us, they were literally staying in the same room that we stayed in, it had additional power or influence.
So do you think if there was a sign that said baby black bear with no mother in sight on the side of the road, you might not have stopped because you wouldn't have had that uncertainty?
That's right. But if I in my hotel room, if they said guys that really like shoes and hats always reuse their towel, I'd be like, I got to reuse my towel. Like, that's me. I'm that guy. I want to be the towel reuser.
There's a great comic. I just love this little comic, Ben. It's on page 120 of the book for anybody who's gone out and bought the book or anything like that. And it's kind of hard to explain a comic strip to you. Yet I'm going to explain it in real life because we've done this. And this is a test for anybody that wants to prove social proof. And that is you want to create some uncertainty. Next time you're at the grocery store or something like that, go outside the grocery store about 10 or 15 steps away and just stop and look up like you're looking at something. Now, if you've got a family member or a friend or two, have them come like 30 seconds later and walk up to you and look up and say, oh, I see it too. And just stand there for a while, and all of a sudden there'll be a group of 15, 20 people all standing up there staring at absolutely nothing, convinced they can see it.
I hate you. I've rolled up on a group of people looking up like this and been the 28th moron to be like, what's going on up there?
Yeah, we used to do this just for fun, and then we'd walk away and watch the group just stare into space.
The same thing happens to me when I see a bunch of people laughing. Like, I don't even know what they're laughing at. I don't know what's funny, but I start laughing. Like, something here has to be funny, so I start laughing.
Well, laughter is contagious. And that's why it is. It's that social proof of, oh, something's funny. I obviously just missed the joke, but I'm going to start laughing along.
But you're unsure, right? If you walked into that situation and you knew what had just been said was not funny, you wouldn't laugh. But it's that uncertainty that makes you want to fit in.
Maybe. You might still, with the social proof, think about a concert you've been to. Think about, I don't know if you're someone who goes to the ballet or the opera or anything like that. We used to have this happen when we were in Las Vegas and doing shows back then when I was in that part of the world. We had a few people in the audience whose job it was to stand up and start clapping at the end. And as soon as a few people start to get up and start clapping, other people start getting up and start clapping. And then all of a sudden a standing ovation has occurred for something that didn't deserve a standing ovation, yet everybody wants to be a part of it, even if they didn't like what they were there for. They still won't sit down and cross their arms. Nope, I'm not going to get up. They don't want to be that outcast. They'll stand up and start clapping along with everyone else.
What's your job? Well, I'm a designated clapper. Like, that's what I need in some of our things. Like, we need some designated laughers in our classes, Bob.
Yeah.
Right? We need some designated clappers.
Well, next time Bob says something funny, we'll just have Dave throw a laugh track in. Now all of our audience is out there laughing along.
We unfortunately do not have enough time.
The book goes into that, though, the whole concept of laugh tracks being used by television executives and why they do it.
It sounds so fake, and we can sit there all the time and go, this is a laugh track. I mean, you even recognize a laugh. You're like, no, I've heard that same person laugh on last week's episode or whatever. Yet you'll laugh along even at home when you're not in that environment because you hear the laughter and you figure you should have gotten the joke better. It's the social proof power.
One of the scary parts of this section of the book was they talked about a lady who, over a period of 45 minutes, was stabbed in the streets, I think, of Brooklyn.
Yep.
And there was a total of 38 neighbors that witnessed this thing happening.
Yep.
And as the story goes, this lady was being attacked by a gentleman. He stabbed her. They saw some lights coming on. He ran away. Nothing happened. He ran back. He did it again. She kept screaming. He stabbed her again. And over this period of 30, 40 minutes, she was murdered. And there was 38 people that had woken up, looked outside, done something. Nobody took action. Nobody called the police. Nobody tried to help. Nobody did anything. And they did a lot of research into this to figure out, are people just cold-hearted in New York, right?
Not true.
New York a little bit, so he could maybe. What really happened there? Well, the book goes on to talk about other scenarios of they staged a gentleman laying on the ground, apparently needing help. And groups of people walked by. As they saw nobody stopping, nobody else stopped. They're like, hey, don't look at the person, don't look at that person, who knows what's going on, just keep walking, go away, go away. When an individual person walked by and nobody else was around and they saw the person down there, a very high percentage of the time, that individual stopped and tried to help that person. One of the comments in the book was, if you're ever in really, like, you're struggling, you need help, and there's a group of people walking by, don't just ask everybody for help. Say, hey, you in the Mickey hat, help me, right? Point somebody out because they're more likely to take action. Well, the other weekend I was driving over the mountains and there was this guy on the side of the road and he was waving at me. And I thought, oh man, I'll wave at him, you know? And I thought, why would some guy on the side of the road on the top of the mountains and nowhere be waving at me? So I stopped and I turned around and just said, hey, do you need anything? And he said, my car's broke down. I'm here with my wife and my child, and we have no cell phone service, and I can't get he had a tire issue or something. And he said, I've been sitting here for 30 minutes, and you're the only person that stopped.
Amazing.
It's a little sad, isn't it?
It is.
A couple weeks prior to that, one of our friends, Tim and I, were driving up the street, and we see this little old lady, probably 70, 80 years old, kind of waving at us from the sidewalk. And it just didn't look right, so I stopped in the middle of the street, and I saw plenty of cars driving by this lady as she's frantically flagging people down. And I stopped and went over to the lady. She's like, my husband's fallen, like, not even a joke. He had fallen down from the sidewalk down in this kind of ravine area, and Tim and I had to drag this guy up out of this hole. And she made the same comment. Nobody stopped.
Well, think about how many times you've been on the road. Heck, somebody listening to the podcast episode right now is in their car and they are driving and they just passed a car that was broken down on the side of the road, yet everybody ahead of you kept going so you didn't stop. It's not that you're not a good person. It's just social proof. Everybody else kept going, so you just did what they did and said, well, that must not really be a broken down car because somebody would have stopped if it was.
When Tim and I stopped to help this lady, once my vehicle was stopped and the hazards were on, 2 other cars stopped. But nobody else had done it before. They needed the social proof that it was okay. Now, in February, I witnessed a car accident of a car literally flipping over right in front of me on the freeway. And I jumped immediately out of the vehicle and started running towards the car. All the other vehicles, nobody got out. They stopped just staring at the fact that this car is upside down, right? I don't know what it is. I run to those types of things. But if one person doesn't take action, nobody does. And I feel like that's a little sad and weird. And we were joking earlier because this winter, it was raining really hard up here in Seattle, surprise. And I saw this kid or teen or something walking, and I thought I should give that person a ride. Like, it's pouring down rain. I feel bad. And I started thinking to myself, like, that's weird. Like, you can't offer
You might get in trouble
adults
for that.
rides. Like, I'm going to get arrested for that. It was so weird. I just drove by and allowed this person in the rain to continue to be rained on. I don't know what the right decision in that situation was, but it's something that's been embedded in my mind. Now, there's lots of powers of social proof, and there's lots of like negative impacts to the world, from cults to religions to politics to social media stuff. Let's bring it back a little bit into how do we use this in our business, and let's talk about some examples of how people use these in sales or in marketing. Bob, one of the examples that I wrote down in our note session was reviews and references.
I'll take them separately, and maybe we'll talk about them separately, but let's start with references. So I've brought up my wife and her sales career. She's a top salesperson. She works at their $1 billion startup, and they do, their sales process. She's ending up, they come in the door. These are $5 million sales, right? To the huge Fortune 50 companies. And one of the things that is almost always offered, and Chad, we were talking about earlier, not always taken up on, but always offered, is a reference to a client that looks like their business. So they come in, and I do know the business. I'll just make one up though. Let's say Boeing, right, is one of their clients. When Lockheed Martin comes in, right, or some other aviation or type company, they will use that other company, Boeing, as a reference, and they'll offer up a reference. Here's a client that we work with that looks a lot like you, right, who you can go and get proof from, and they'll actually they prime their clients to do that for them, right? So they'll say, hey, Boeing, or whatever company it is, it's not Boeing, but hey, would you mind being a reference for us later when we've got a customer we'd like to do business with and build a great relationship like we've built with you? And so having references, Ben, it's really referrals, right? Like a referral is this type of a thing. It's like, hey, it's a reference. So references are super powerful social proof, because often you're giving a reference of somebody that's like that person or like they want to be.
Yeah,
Sounds
I think
like a
about
past
in the
episode.
software world, if I find a vendor that one of my competitors is using, I always ask the question why. Like, why are they using SendGrid or Twilio or Bandwidth or all these Salesforce or HubSpot or all sort of things? I always wonder, right? And if I'm not using it, I wonder, why am I not using it? What do they know that I don't know? And it forces me to go dig into it. Yeah. I think maybe just like advertising who your customers are is social proof that you should be using that one as well.
That's something you see at the bottom of a lot of websites you go to, right? We talked about this before in the series, but they've got those, the little logos
As
down
seen
there
on
saying,
or used
as
by.
seen on or used by. Yep, here's our clients. Absolutely.
What's some other examples of how social proof is used in marketing, Chad?
Well, we were talking, Ben, earlier about the T-shirt craze that we had for a while with IMSD that we did years and years and years ago now. We had our geeky shirts, and we used to joke that people were buying the shirt, right? And they were getting the training included to go along with it. And what did we do? Well, we just gave the shirt to enough people, and anybody who had signed up for the program got a shirt. And then we asked everybody to wear the shirt on one day, the last day of the convention that we were at, and we had triple the sales because everybody just wanted the shirt because they saw everyone running around wearing the T-shirt.
And that's something we've extended, right? Like we do that when we go to these conferences now. We'll do that with one of our other software companies where we'll get one day, right? Because there's 4 or 5 days of this conference, but we'll get everybody kind of geared around one day and say, hey, on Saturday, everybody's going to show up in that shirt we gave all you guys, which again is driving people in that, on that trade show floor to go, wait, why are there 50
It's the social
people in
proof
there?
of people saying, well, that shirt must be a product. I'm going to go get that. I've got to have that as well.
Arguably one of the best marketing dollars that we've ever spent in our career is $5 T-shirts that our customers actually want to wear.
That
and I've seen a lot
lights.
of company T-shirts that you wouldn't want to wear.
No.
Right? But when you do it the right way, we've had ones that say "Think Bigger" on there, right? Or
We were bringing geeky back.
Yeah, geeky t-shirts.
Even
all
this
sorts
one
of
I'm wearing right now, it's hashtag Brevity Life. Like our clients are constantly saying, hey, I want a shirt. How do I get a shirt like that? Like, and we do these online Zooms and they show up in their shirt, right? And
stay tuned when give fans
Right?
announcement to come at some point.
We need some social proof. You know, another example is you're on a website, completely different product. Maybe you don't know anybody that's used it, but they have these little pop-ups that say, hey, John just bought, Sue just bought, and they're showing all of their sales in real time. It gets you all frantic. Be like, look at all these people buying this thing. Maybe I should be buying that. And I know I'm probably getting scammed, like the car salesman was lying to Bob about where his family was from. But
see the last episode to hear that story.
You look at a Facebook page and you see the likes on it and you see that a whole bunch of your friends like it.
Yep.
A lot of times that feels like an endorsement. I went and heard some great speakers in different industries speak, and a lot of times they would call people out in the audience by name. And those of you that have been to my live events, you will notice that I do that quite often. I'm often referring to people by name. Sometimes it's because I can read their name tag as I'm walking by. Sometimes it's because I know them. But if you were a new guest to that world, you would assume that I knew everybody in that room. But when I first saw the gentleman do this, he was referring to people. I assumed that all those people were his customers. That was social proof that I should be using that guy's product or service. Yeah. At the end of the day, as I found out, those were just people he invited, his guests. He took the time to learn their name, but it was very, very powerful. Now, Chad and I were talking about how do you translate this into maybe a sales conversation? And there's a term that if you've been in sales for a long time, you've been taught. And I'm going to have Chad just kind of introduce the concept, and then we'll role play it once or twice.
Well, Ben, I think it's the greatest script out there for closing anything, and that's feel, felt, found, right? And if you know the terms feel, felt, found, you know how to use it already. But that's creating social proof right there, right? First of all, it starts with the empathy, which you've talked about many, many, many times. And that is I understand how you feel, right? It's that empathy moment that comes along with it. Then it's all of a sudden, now social proof comes into it, right? I have others who felt the exact same way. And here's what they found. So now it's all of a sudden, all these people over here are doing this. And now it's the social proof that comes along with that simple script of feel, felt, found on a close, that it's no longer them on their own, it's them as a group seeing the peer pressure.
When I hear you say that, Chad, you said, and here's what they found. Do you think it'd be more powerful if you said, and here's what we found? Like you actually helped with the consensus aspect, right? It's like my client felt that way, but we together found that was not actually the case. It was actually this thing. I don't know.
It's going to depend on what your product you're probably promoting is. Right. If you're in something large, like buying a car that you were talking about on our last episode, for example, the salesman's going to say to you, Bob, I understand how you feel about heated seats as an add-on in the car. You know, I've had other clients who felt the exact same way. What they found
right,
was by the end of the first winter, they were calling me going, can you add that? Because I should have had it in the first place. Right. So Bob, doesn't it make sense that we put the heated seats in the car right away? And now it's not the salesman selling you on heated seats. It's, oh, there's this imaginary group over here of his past clients, the references that he has. In theory, you could call them, that they all said, yes, we wish we had put those heated seats in.
I use, Ben's, we don't talk a lot about the specifics of like your business, for example, Ben, but you have these massive real estate sales teams that are amazing. And then we sell software products to people that want to be like your real estate sales teams. And I use the social proof of your teams every single day, multiple times a day, where I'm saying, this is the way that Ben's team does this, right? And it carries that weight of, the first or second largest real estate team in the United States. And it's like, it's not who they are today, but it's who they want to be. And so I'm constantly reinforcing to our clients that you could do it like these guys. And I know you're not them, but you want to be them one day.
That's social proof and a little bit of the liking.
Well, everybody, I know how you feel. It's been a bunch of episodes on persuasion and influence. Honestly, I felt the same way. But here's what I found. When you take the time to master these skills, research it, learn it, you're going to see your recruiting skills go up, your hiring skills go up, your sales skills, your coaching, maybe even your relationship, friendships, all of that. Chad, how do we end each one of these calls?
Well, Ben, we've been talking about persuasion. We've been talking about influence. And today we talked about social proof. We're going to ask you, make sure we've got that review. Make sure you've rated the podcast if you've been enjoying this. Go post about this series that we've just talked about, and let's create some social proof so you can see it in action. And then join us while you're online at facebook.com/group/winmakegive. Make sure you don't forget to visit winmakegive.com to find out what's going on in our world and what's coming for you. Until then, as always, do good.